Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first day of reInvent 2018. We wanted to thank you for being here. We know you have a lot of choices for all the different talks that we have, and we appreciate you spending the next hour with us. Mike, Diego, and I are really excited to be here for two main reasons. The first being the nature of the problem that we're trying to solve here and share that story with you. And the second being, this is the first time Activision Blizzard has actually spoken at reInvent. So I'm really excited to be here. So the problem that we're trying to solve is actually pretty pervasive in the gaming industry. If you're in the gaming industry, you're probably aware of user acquisition and user retention, which is quickly becoming a challenge as more and more game titles come out, and you're looking to absorb the attention of your customers. It is commanding bigger and bigger budgets every year, and it is becoming an industry unto itself. So this is where the Call of Duty coach comes in. We are here to talk about a novel approach to user retention and the creativity that can enable unique experiences for your end customers and gamers. Before we get started, a quick introduction. My name is Dhruv Thukral. I've been with Amazon Web Services for a little under 5 years. This is actually my 5th reInvent, and I've spoken in each and every one of them. The crowd sizes just keep getting bigger and bigger, which is awesome. Also means a little bit more scary on my end as a speaker. When I first started, we had 60 people in my first talk, but we really appreciate you being here. I started my career as a gaming solutions architect, which meant that I worked with gaming companies across all of North America, and I've done a few talks. You might have attended them, you might not have. But this year, I started focusing on Activision Blizzard, mainly because of the nature of the workloads, and the cool things that they're trying to solve, this being one of them. So just wanted to give you a quick overview of the agenda. We'll start with some introductions, and then we will quickly dive into the business requirements that drove this project. We will then focus on the meaty parts of this presentation. We'll go over the architecture and how Alexa fits into this whole solution space. We will talk about the various obstacles that we faced and the different lessons learned. Some of these will definitely be applicable to you if you're trying to replicate this experience. And then finally, we will bookend this talk with what the future looks like. And then we want to share some resources with the audience here. If you want to replicate this experience for your customers, those resources will come in handy. So with that being said, I'm going to hand over the stage to Mike and Diego.
Thanks, Dhruv. My name is Mike Blesky. I am Senior Manager of DevOps in part of the Activision Blizzard Marketing Technology Group. I'm joined today with Diego Toledo. He is Associate Software Architect for the same group. And between us, we have 14, I think, plus titles of Activision between us. So we've kind of been around the block. We've kind of seen all the Call of Duties and been around the block quite a bit. I think most of you might be familiar with Call of Duty. We feel like it really doesn't need any introduction. However, we kind of wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the product that we work on. So without further ado, I want to show a trailer of our Call of Duty World War II. So that was Call of Duty World War II. That was last year's title. November 3rd was last year. So I've been a gamer my whole life, from number munchers and getting dysentery on Oregon Trail on the Apple IIes. And now I get the privilege of working on the latest Call of Duties. The main question I get asked a lot is, what exactly is Activision Blizzard? You see Activision all over, you hear Activision Blizzard, but what exactly does that mean? We are a part of a big family, Activision Blizzard, and now it includes King. Activision Publishing, we are responsible for Call of Duty. Our most recent one is Black Ops 4, and the Alexa skill is based upon World War II, which is last year's title. Blizzard, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and then King, Candy Crush, Farm Hero Saga. I'm sure all of you have one of those on your phones right as we speak. Diego and I specifically work for the marketing technology group within Activision Publishing. And what we do is we work on a few key platforms within the environments. We do the CallOfDuty.com, Activision.com main websites, the MyCallOfDuty.com portal. We now have a mobile companion app. We do the in-game messaging platform. We work on the ETL layer for for doing email campaigns, and of course, what we're here today, the Call of Duty Alexa skill. So first, I want to kind of go over an overview of what our architecture looked like before we started this journey, to kind of give you an idea of what we did with our data and how we worked with it to begin with. So it all starts with our central data services event pipeline. The game event emits massive amounts of data, and our central data services group collects that and gives us and feeds us a nice little pipe so we could kind of listen into those events and do what we will with them. We have Python-based pipeline readers that actually, there's many of them stacked together, and we read that real-time data, and we insert that into a distributed NoSQL data mart. From there, we have a REST-based API endpoint that delivers the content to mycallofduty.com. If you're not familiar with mycallofduty.com, I'm not sure if you are or not, but it's a portal that allows you to sign up for an Activision account. You can log in and view all of your stats, all of your top-level stats, such as kill-death ratio, wins, losses. You get a weekly recap, as well as you can have there's a little text snippet of a natural language-generated content that's different for every single Call of Duty user. So with that, we just saw the trailer for the actual for the campaign for World War II, but our skill is based around the multiplayer experience. So what does the multiplayer experience look like? Well, here's another trailer of our multiplayer World War II.
Thank you, Mike. So what you guys saw now was this trailer has like a mix of like cinematics and some gameplay there. Multiplayer can be really intense. There was a lot of stuff going on around you right there, as you could see. The multiplayer is played in game modes. Different game modes have different goals. So for example, it all boils down to having two teams. You're in one of the teams, you defeat the other team. So some game modes, you can do something like capture a flag or protect the flag. You can plant a bomb or defuse a bomb. You can conquer territory or defend territory. Or some game modes do not even have a team at all. It's a free-for-all, like you just need to be the last guy standing. So before you join a match, typically you choose your loadout. And your loadout, it's your primary weapon, your secondary weapon. You need to choose a list of attachments to complement your weapons. And an attachment could be something like a scope, a grip, a silencer, and after that you need to choose two pieces of equipment. So usually like an explosive and a flashbang, like a tactical type of weapon. And you have the division and the basic training. So the division, you can think of as like your character. They're like, each division has like some are better doing certain things than others. So for example, one division is better taking damage from explosives. Another division is good in more stealth mode. And the basic training gives you like a special ability. So you want to complement your character with some special skill. So you can do something like to scramble the radar from one of your enemies, or you can increase your radar. So there are many different things. So if you want to be a better player in Call of Duty, it's really time consuming to go through all the possible iterations of all the attachments, of all the weapons, and you don't have time to explore all possibilities. So that's why it was a problem that we identified right there. So we need a coach, right? So our goal is, we know that from data that Call of Duty is easy to understand but hard to master. You guys understood that you have like two teams goes against each other, but get there and actually succeed is really hard. We know from data that different people do better than other people, right? So we need to find out what's going on there. So usually there's a steep curve for you to get better in Call of Duty. And when you wanted to go through the steep curve, a lot of people dropped through that. Usually things like this are solved by creating one of those. Here are the top 5 ways for you to get better in Call of Duty. Here are the top 5 loadouts before you're joining a match. But we were aiming to do something personalized. So we want every single person to have their personalized Call of Duty coach. We didn't want to have something generic. We wanted to have like your top 5 list. Again, easy to understand, but hard to master. So what does a Call of Duty coach sound like? Right? If you ask a player what is expecting, if Activision wants to release a skill in Alexa, what is being expected from Activision whenever we have like a Call of Duty skill? And we want to drive engagement. And in this case, we want people to get better and go through the learning curve as soon as possible. So how do we do that? How do we deliver this content? People want to know what loadout to use and if they're using the optimal loadout. A lot of people just choose 2 or 3 combinations of loadout. They don't explore much more than that, and they try to become really good in this one loadout. And most of the time, it's not the optimal loadout. And what kind of feedback? So people do play with their friends, and sometimes you have a friend coaching you. So what type of feedback does your friend give to you? Or what type of feedback you give to your friends? Do you give like a tactical feedback? Do you give like encouragement? And there's when you have like so much to improve from, like how do you sort what is more important? What type of advice are more important? So there's a lot of moving parts here. And this was like an idea that was floating around our company for a while, and we always just let it go because it all sounded like too impossible because we couldn't find a way to really put everything together in a concise way, something that could deliver like to our standards. Just think for a moment that we could deliver a machine learned model that could give you a personalized recommendation to you. And also just think for a moment that we do have a content team that can generate content to you about Call of Duty. There's still the problem that Call of Duty is a game that is always evolving. There's always new weapons being included in the game. The stats of the weapons are changing. There are new maps being added. So it's like a moving target for you to shoot. And if we're going to deliver a coach like that, what channel should we use? So like, where is this thing going to live? Where would it feel like natural for the users to use this coach? And finally, there's the whole heavy lifting. Like, for example, if you want to make like a voice interface, if you didn't have Alexa, let's say, you would have to spend like 6 months just developing the tech so you could start a prototype, right? This is like a huge commitment right there. So you want something that was right there up for grabs. So some of the early ideas right there. Chatbot, website, in-game. Everything comes down to we want our users to continue to play Call of Duty. If we put our content, if we put our coach in a website or an app somewhere else, we're going to make the user drop the joystick and go somewhere else to look for this content. And once you are somewhere else, you're like looking your emails, your notifications, social media, and you're gone. So we want to increase engagement. We want to create something that is going to make people drop Call of Duty and do something else. And like Mike said, we're part of marketing tech. We're not part of studio. So this is not something that we could just put inside of the game. So this is something very experimental. We wanted something that we could in parallel and complement the game. So why Alexa? Why did we pick Alexa in the end? So whenever we had this idea floating, whenever I was pitching this idea to people in the office, people would come to me like, hey, you have this coach, this is great. Why don't you just put this coach on a website or a mobile app and call it a day? Why does it have to go in Alexa? It's just that by talking to a brand, it allows a degree of immersion in the game that is not possible on a website. Just think about it. You're playing the game, and you're talking to Call of Duty as it's happening, as if there was somebody, as if there was somebody in the living room with you right there. It gives like a second screen-like experience without putting down the controller. So I could be there holding the controller and getting some feedback about something specific about the game. And again, we want it to feel like a mentor or a buddy sitting next to you. People do play with friends, so we want to always have this feeling with like Call of Duty was this guy beside you in the couch. So we decided we could do it. This time we could do it. The time was right. So we could deliver this thing. First, I'm going to show you guys how the final product looks like right now. It's just going to help you guys to put everything together in your head as we go to the next few slides, especially the more technical ones. So yeah, it's going to help. So we published 3 trailers for the release, and they're all on YouTube. You guys should watch. They're really funny. But we wanted to show those trailers for this presentation, but we had to make some last-minute changes. Long story short, we have to remove the actors from the video. But Mike and I, we are software engineers from LA, and being a software engineer in LA, acting is part of your skill set, right? So I'm going to be doing the lines of the trailer. So right now, think of I'm a player. I'm in my living room. I'm playing Call of Duty. I just had a very bad match. Now, I'm going to look for Call of Duty and ask for a piece of advice so I can improve the game, my game, so when the next match starts, I know what to do. Alexa, how did I do in my last match?
Let me break it down for you. You got clobbered. You were in last place on your team. And you collected a score of 25.
How do I improve my skills?
Use a grip to reduce recoil and help improve accuracy. Try hustle for your basic training perk, and arm yourself with a lethal like a satchel chart.
What division should I use?
Now you're asking the right question, soldier. The ideal division for you is airborne.
Okay, let's get back to that. Okay. So here is the end of match. This is the lobby. So whenever a match ends, this is where you go. So this is the screen that you're going to see there for like about like 15 to 20 seconds, and that's when that you're waiting for the next match to load. Now, those three guys in the screen, those are the top three guys from the previous match. Now, you want to be those three guys because they get to stay there and brag and do some cool moves while the next match is loading. So you don't want to be the guy watching them. You want to be those three guys. So whenever we design the coaching part of the skill, we want it to be used in this screen because you just had a bad match and you look at those three guys, you're pissed, and you want to get an advice on how to get there next time. Of course, like the skill does much more than that in the end, but we think that's our MVP. That's who did most of the work. So this is the skill builder. This is something that make our confidence level go way up that we could deliver this thing. That's what I said before, that all the tech was already there for us to design like a voice interface. This is how our look right now. On the left, you guys see the intents. So the intents are like your API paths. So they are the type of things that can be triggered. On the right, you see the examples that are going to trigger a certain intent. So for example, right now you have friends compare selected. So if somebody say friend stats, my stats, and my friends, those are examples of things that are going to trigger the friends compare intent. So you're going to receive like a request in your backend with the type friends compare, and you need to handle that now. Now, you may have noticed there's some colored words right there. So for example, if we have, let's say we have a stat for getting your stats. You get a call to get your stats. Let's say it's just unfeasible to write every single combination of like, what is my accuracy? How many kills do I have? What is my blah, blah, blah. So to solve this problem, you create those lots. And those lots are like whitelists. So you put all your stats in those lots. So you just write it once in the example side on the right. What is my stat list? So you have right there like 100 examples for all those possible stats that you have. And this also makes it really easy to manage later, because whenever you add a new stat in the game or add something new in the list, it's just going to reflect everywhere in your code there. So we have the skill builder. We have Alexa. We think we're good to go. We think we have like all the pieces. We think like this time this idea is going to happen. But again, now that we have the tech, we need to decide how this thing is going to look like, what we're going to actually build, right? We need to show people in the office an MVP, something so people get excited about. So the goals for our prototype was, we need to have like an onboarding experience first, because voice interfaces are really new to most people. And it's really intimidating if you think about it, to have like this device in front of you and it doesn't react, and there's no screen, there's no menu. So you don't know what you can say. You don't know what is allowed to say to this device. So you need to have like an onboarding experience that you just go through what is available for you. We need to show the magic of fetching data in real time. So you just play the match, and you just go to this device on the side and ask something about that just happened in the screen, and people would be just like, wow, like how did you guys tie those things together? So we had to show this to people. And we had to build like a machine learning model to coach those players, right? Because that's the whole point. We want everybody to get a personalized recommendation in the end of their match. We didn't want to have something generic. And finally, getting people in the office excited. So find out who needs to be looped in this project, because you need more people to get this thing to be ready in production, to be released. So the multiplayer had a lot of moving parts, like I said. So this is like a overall how we solve that problem. So spoiler alert, we have a database with all the matches ever played. So we can look at this database and see that some people do better, some people do worse, and we can just feed in a bunch of models to try to learn what, and try to contrast, also see like what can we do to make you better when you compare you to these other people that are much better than you. So the blues here in the slides are data, community data and user data. The greens are models, of course. So in here, you see community data being fed into the skill model and the playstyle model, and the output of those two models together with the user data, they go inside the recommendations model, and that's what you see in the end. For example, that's what you heard the device say in the end. So what we're aiming here is, what is the smallest piece of a device that I can give to you that is going to have the biggest impact in your game, right? We don't want, if you're a player that likes to save a sniper, we don't want it to go and do something like, okay, the #1 player in the world likes to run around with a shotgun. Here we go. You're going to have a shotgun, and you're going to run around like this guy now. We wanted you to stay within your play style and so you want it to improve within your comfort zone. So you want to find something that we're going to change a little bit, and it's going to have a huge improvement in your game. So input data. User data is real time. So that is what just happened. The match just ended, and now you're asking something about this match. So we could finish a match and ask right away, what was my accuracy in that match? Or what is my lifetime accuracy, lifetime number of shots? You can ask all of that. Facts and milestones are things that we keep track of for the players. They're like counters of things like, for example, number of matches that you ever played. Did you play the previous Call of Duty games? Did you finish the single-player campaign? So we keep track of all of that. And as you're doing, you're updating your profile there. Community data is historical. We just have too many players, and they generate too much data. So we cannot just make a community aggregation every time somebody makes a question. And basically, I think we don't even need that. So we just make those batches that we just aggregate a bunch of community data. And we do this for a window of time, right? Because remember that the game is always changing, so you always want to stay relevant. So you need to find like a sweet spot that you have enough data, enough days that you can see some patterns emerging from your data, but at the same time, because the game is always changing, you don't want some old data making your recommendations irrelevant. All of our benchmarks, all of our aggregations are done per map and per mode. I'm going to go in deeper that later. And our sweet spot was weekly. But this thing is always a little bit moving up and down depending on like what happened in the game. Okay. So the model, so the skill model. Skill model does a lot of things, but basically answers how good are you. We have a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the bigger the number, better you are. One example where we use this is how we talk to you. So if you are like a #1, not so good player, beginner, and you had a bad match, we're going to be nicer to you, right? If you're like a #4 and you had a very bad match, we're going to be nasty because you can take it. And we use this in different places also, but there's like an interesting use of the skill model. There's also the play style model. So the play style model, I'd like to point out that it's not a class. This is not a classification algorithm, but it's a continuous value. So what do we mean about that? You can go and say, oh yeah, there's 5 different ways or 7 different ways that you can play Call of Duty. But what happens now is that you're going to have only 5 or 7 different types of recommendations. And you don't want to bucket all the people in those 5 buckets, right? You want to have like a big diversity of recommendations. So for example, we have a player that likes to snipe, engage from long distance, but he's a camper. He likes to stay in the corner, he never moves. And you have the second player that also likes to engage from distance. We could call him a sniper, but he has these 3 locations that is always rotating and moving the map. So every time he kills somebody, he shoots somebody, he escapes and moves to the next location. Now, in the previous model, those 2 guys would be called snipers, and boom, they would get the same recommendation. In this continuous value model, they would get similar recommendation, but not exactly the same recommendation. So that's the idea for us, because everybody is a little bit of everything. Here, all of recommendations are based on map and mode, style, and skill. So focus on map and mode. Different modes, like I said, demand different type of skills, right? You can do something like it's a free-for-all, or you can do like a capture your flag. So it depends like very different type of skills. So the stats, the benchmarks, everything for the model, they're going to look very different. But also, if you think of the map, they also make, the maps are very different between them too. So you could have like a map that is wide open and be Sniper's Paradise, or something that is like really close counters and people running around with shotgun do better than others. Also, the same map across different game modes, they also look very different. Because, for example, you can have a map that you need to control a certain part of the map. It's like a control game. So people's movement pattern are going to be very different than, for example, the same map where you play a free-for-all that everybody's by themselves, and you could basically go anywhere. So that's why every single model that we do is per game mode and for every combination of mode and map. So challenges. Game is rebalancing, and new features are being added. So having that rolling window is not enough, because sometimes you have like some big metagame changes too. So the division systems were changed dramatically in the middle of the live game cycle. So for example, being an airborne division changed dramatically in the middle of the life of the game. Like new perks, sometimes perks stats get changed, sometimes a perk get added, and this perk is there to counter some other old perk. So these dynamics are always changing, and players are changing together, and they are very fast in adapt to all those changes. So you want to be able to reflect all those changes. So as soon as something like this go live, you need to adapt, and you don't want your recommendation to just become old, you know. Okay. So we have all those pieces together. We built something that works, but right now all of that was working on my computer, on my laptop. Now is the part that how we make this production level. And yeah. Here we need to answer some questions, like, for example, how to avoid repetitive responses. So whenever somebody asks, what is my accuracy, you don't want to say every single time, your accuracy is 0.5, your accuracy is 0.5, because it just sounds repetitive and it just starts hurting in your ear. So you want to have some variation of how you answer that question. How many and what intents, and how much content to support. Now we have like many Call of Duty games. We could literally just try to support every single game, every single character, every single weapon, but that would be like too much to maintain, right? We need something feasible that we can launch and maintain after, because this is going to be like a live service type of situation. So we need to know like what are we going to support. Content, custom MP3 on demand. So if you guys noticed from the trailer, that was not Alexa's voice. So nothing against Alexa, but we wanted to find like a more like a stronger male voice that better fits the Call of Duty brand. So we were looking for something to deliver MP3 generation on demand, something that we just send text and we get MP3, so something that wouldn't cost us tons of money, and we'll be able to scale, because as soon as you ask something to the Alexa, to the Echo Spot, you want the answer to come right away. You don't have to have those lags of like 3 seconds. Here is what we went live with. So match summary and match analysis. So the match summary, think of it as your like sports highlights. This is going to give you like your best stats, your worst stats, how did you compare against your friend, against people in the match, and it's all going to be centered around you. So like how everything was done and compared to you. So you're the center of everything. Analysis is something like, this is the coaching part. So that's when you say, how to improve my skills. So we're going to get your, the things that we need to improve on. We're going to go to those models, and we're going to generate a recommendation for you right there. Stat lookup is for fast things like give me my accuracy, how many matches did I ever play, how many shots did I ever fired. So all things like that. Orders in contracts. So those things are like challenges that you have in the game. They are going to give you special rewards. They are time-based, so they're always refreshing, and you need to complete them in a certain amount of time. So you want to keep an eye on that. So people are always looking to see what are the new orders in contract that are available for them, or how close they are from completing one of those contracts. So this is one of the cases that you might not even play in the game, and you might just go to the device and say, hey, what are the new orders that are available today? Friends. So now you can use our skill to brag to your friends that you're better than they are in Call of Duty. Because our skill is going to find something that you're better than your friends, and going to let you know. But if they use the skill, we're always going to find something that they are better than you are. And you can also use that to check if anybody is online. So this is the type of situation that you're doing something, and you want to just log in once your friends are online. News, updates, and game events. Those are for certain things like patch notes, when Activision wants to let players know about something that happened, or like some special event in this weekend, you're going to get like double experience. Yeah. See here, okay. So Poly. So that's how we solve the text-to-speech on demand. So Poly is a service that is available, that AWS offers that. You see the drop down there on the bottom. This is the language. So we have they support many languages. Our skill is also in many languages, thanks to that. And on the right, you choose your voice. So our voice is Matthew. So right there. But you can choose other voices there too. So of course they have like an API that you send, and you're going to send a voice ID. And in this case here, the voice ID is Matthew. Now you notice also that this is, by the way, this is in the AWS portal. This is the Poly tool. There's 2 tabs, plain text and SSML. So plain text is just plain text. You send text, and they just got to read left to right, everything. And it's going to respect the commas, it's going to respect the punctuation. But you will see there is not much emotion, so it feels a little bit like the Terminator is talking to you. If you really want to have like granular control of like how things are said, like slower, faster, louder, if you want to give like a longer pause, a shorter pause, you want to use SSML. So if you're familiar with HTML, it works very similar to HTML. You just have a bunch of tags, you nest things around, and you basically just need to learn like 5 tags, and you can do like really good stuff with 5 tags, but have like a bunch of tags. You can do things like, you can control things like tomato, tomato. You can really go to like specific letters. It's really cool. So organize your content. Remember that all of that at the beginning was in my laptop. And every time somebody had to change the way the skill was saying something, we would have me to go to S3 or change a CSV file somewhere. So one of the best things that we did early in the project was like getting a CMS up. So non-technical people could be looped in the project and could start working in parallel in all those different ways to answer people's questions. We have static and dynamic content. So static content is something that is never going to change, of course. This is something like you're asking about a specific character in the game or a specific weapon in the game. Dynamic content is like usually like user-based stuff. So your accuracy is going to be always changing because you're playing, so it's going to be always changing. The natural language generation. So all our models output stuff like 112, like this comma-separated stuff. And in the end, on the other side, we have like, hey, good job winning. So we have this templating system that we find, for example, 10 ways to say, hey, good job winning. And another 10 ways to say, your best stat was X. every time we make a request through our APIs, it's going to randomly pick one of those 10 here, one of those 10 here, and boom, you have like 100 different type of responses. And then you just chain that like 8, 9 times, and you have like a huge amount of variation. So your skill is going to sound very different every single time.
So I'm going to turn it over to Diego again.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So playtest. So we have like some machine learning models working. We had a CMS. We have an architecture V2. And so we have like an almost final product. We have some little bugs here and there. But we wouldn't have like to see how this thing would behave in the wild, right? Because until now, it was only people in the team using or people in the company using. We wouldn't look some real players, how they would react to that Call of Duty skill that we were building for them. So long story short, it went terrible. Did not go so well. So, and I recommend you to start one ASAP and do more and more later. So we had this guy coming in, and he would moderate all those sessions. A lot of people came, all different type of backgrounds. So they would play a Call of Duty match, and then we'd let them know about what the skill was about. And people would just freeze. They wouldn't know like what to ask. They wouldn't know. We would go to them like, so how would you ask if you want to know this certain stat? Like people would just know. So 99% of the sessions were people asking, what is Call of Duty? And we have built all of that, and people didn't use any of that. It's hard to discover features. So even the people that were actually like using the skill correctly, they had problems exploring. And after the session, we would ask them like, oh, so what type of intents, what type of like features did you like the most? We could only recall like 1 or 2 intents. It was really hard for them to know that there's more is available. Because remember, there's no menu, like there's nothing for you to think or like to tap. So there's just this one device there looking at you. And we were really, really, really ambitious about how to design our dialogues. So we create like those fancy funnels that people would start with like some generic question, and it would just move into something more specialized, and then they would get their match recommendation, then it would end up somewhere like they get information about a specific basic training or a specific weapon. Like users did not follow any of that. So they would just jump in, make 3 very unrelated questions, start 3 funnels, and you just jump out. So it was terrible. And there's this case of this guy that just walked in and asked, what is my groove? Right? What are you supposed to do when something like that happens? How are you supposed to answer this question? So the skill builder model does a really good job in finding slightly different variations of the examples that you gave and map to the correct intent. But in this case, there was nothing close to what is my groove. So what happened here, he just gave him his match summary. So I don't know if that was the best user experience there. So dialogue tips. So how to solve some of those problems? So be proactive. So we designed a flow that you get your question answered, and you would hint about some other feature that we're also offering. So your X is 10. Do you want to hear how to improve? You have the best accuracy among your friends. Do you want me to check if your friends are online? So the user could just say yes, and you just start the next intent right away. But if they say no, it's okay, because at least they know that they can do something about their friends in the future, and they can do something about how to improve. Okay. So intent design tips. So after you start having a lot of intents and a lot of examples, you need to step back and see because remember that the model is going to map things for you, right? So slightly different sentences are going to be mapped to the certain intent. So here's an example of 2 different questions that look similar, but they are very different. So what does the quartermaster have today? So the quartermaster is this character that gives you the orders and the contracts, what you're keeping track of. And what is the quartermaster? You're asking, who is this character? In our case, both of the examples were being mapped to the same intent, which is wrong. So you need to really organize your intents in a way that there's no conflict like that. These are a really hard thing to fix, but the way we fix that, we add like a slot in the end. So for example, today, where like this list that we have like the word today, now, available. So whenever somebody would say what and quartermaster and finish with like one of those words from the list, we would just map to the first one, to the first example, and the right intent would be triggered. If you don't fulfill the slot, the second example triggers, and then you go to the right intent right there. So really take advantage of the slots and keep them organized. You don't want to have the same word in multiple slot lists. And most of the problems can be fixed with just getting more examples. So don't go there and just put like 5 examples or 10 examples of like how this intent is going to be triggered. We're talking about hundreds right now. So if you get a lot of them, things work really well. That's when the model really kicks in the performance. It anticipates bad queries and design like a story response. So that's the what's my groove situation. Like somebody could just walk to your skill and say, ask something about the space shuttle, or ask something about like some rumor that I just read online. So you need to have like a catch-all intent for all those cases. And it's better to say something, sorry, this is not available, sorry, could ask something that, could ask that again in a different way, than just give like the wrong response, like we happened the what's my groove question that we told them his match summary. So here's the release. So hundreds of thousands of different responses. Thanks of this chaining trick that we did. We have like 44 different types of intents on release. So a lot of stuff supported. Multi-platform support. So this was a big deal that we could support all of them, PSN, PSBox, Xbox Live, anything you use. So you could ask about your friends, get your data. So nobody was left behind. So this is really cool. And people that did reuse the skill, they did like it. And we see they come back. That was really cool. So from these people, we could see that we have like a really good positive reaction from them. So here, some of the community response. So as of now, like what is that, 3.5 stars. We have like a lot of good reviews. Here's more acting for you guys. So here's the second trailer. So this trailer is here because now that you guys went through all of this journey with us, now you guys, again, can tie everything together. You guys can appreciate everything that happens in the background, how all those pieces are tied together. Alexa, how did I do in my last match?
Let me break it down for you. Looks like you were in team deathmatch. On the V2 map, you destroyed him. Let the record show you were in first place on your team.
How do I compare against my friends?
Sure thing. Let's see how your friends did. Your KD ratio is 1.2. So of all your friends, you're first. And the average is 0.82.
Is anybody online right now?
6 of your friends are online. 2 are playing Call of Duty.
So this thing live, like I said, so we have to go bigger right now. So what do we have in mind right now? What is in our roadmap? So we have like all those things that we couldn't support from the start, or all those ideas that we can improve, all those new features. So here are some ideas that we have right now that we're studying what we should release for the next game. Because again, this is for World War II, and this year's game is Black Ops 4. We could add screen support. We could add better recommendations. Much more content. So 22 intents were left out from the release. Cannot say what they are, but they might make it. And the new game has this thing, the blackout mode. You guys should look it up. I actually have a trailer of the blackout game mode. I'm gonna have to skip it because we're running out of time. Because I want to give the mic back to Mike. So we just skip it.
Yeah, I'll skip it. So this was part of the end of the trailer, but we'll just go right through it. Blackout, real quick. 1 life, random loadouts. Much bigger maps. You choose your landing location, circle closing. Everyone probably in here has played Fortnite before or some sort of battle royale, PUBG. This is the Call of Duty Blackout is the Black Ops take of the battle royale. But I just wanted to say thank you to Diego. I want to give a quick shout out to him, all of his models. I've played Call of Duty pretty much every single title I've played. And when World War II came out, I was struggling pretty bad on one of the maps. And I was going in there with an assault rifle, and I just couldn't make any headway on the map. And I was one of the initial testers. You know, I was doing all the infrastructure. I was one of the initial testers for the skill. And, you know, it's like, you know, hey, Alexa, ask Call of Duty, how'd I do? And, well, it said I did terrible, and you should try this weapon. And it was one weapon that I never even thought that I would use before. And I started using it, and my KD ratio went way up for that map, and I really appreciate what the work that he's done with it. And with that, I want to bring Drew back on to talk about resources.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Diego. So, as promised, what would you do if you want to replicate this experience? We talked about the Alexa framework. It's basically broken down into two main components. One is the skills kit, which is what Diego and Mike just talked about. It basically allows you to create the skills, allows for the natural language processing, the automated speech recognition. That's where you create the intents. Then there's the other part, which is called Alexa Voice Service. That allows you to deploy your skill into devices such as the Echo, or maybe you could create a toy, which is internet connected, and you can embed a skill within that toy. There's lots of examples where gaming companies are doing that. So when you combine the two, there's an opportunity to create a whole bunch of unique experiences.